And here we are. Welcome everybody to this July's session of Kubewarden community meeting, this monthly meeting. I am Victor, one of the maintainers of Kubewarden. I will be your host today. And today we have several maintainers and colleagues that are working on Kubewarden. So for example, we have Jose.
Hello.
We have Fabrizio.
Hi.
We have John.
Hello.
And we have Flavio also.
Hi.
So what's the meeting for today? As usual, all the meeting agenda and so on are public in the docs that we share. You can find them on kubewarden.io. And it's a docs.google.com. That's why the slip up. So for today, on the meeting's agenda, it's going to be somewhat short. We have the topics of the 1.14 release that we released almost like a week and a half ago, something like that. And then some changes to policies and fixes to policies. So let's start then. With the topic of the 1.14 release, we can talk about a workaround for the PolicyServer certificates. So maybe I can start talking about that. Yeah, we realized that when we wanted to do migration and renewal of the certificates that are used inside of the PolicyServers. Those are certificates that are used for connecting to the Kubernetes API server and connecting to the webhooks. And we realized, I mean, we had the certificates created. They are created every time that you deploy Kubewarden, and they are set up for 10 years. And we realized that for the specific PolicyServer ones, they were set to 1 year, which is, of course, too short. And we issue a change there. And we change them to 10 years. Of course, we want to work on automating this, automating the renewal of the certificates and automating maybe the renewal of the CA certificates. And with that said, one needs to be aware that with 1.14, thanks to John, that has written this docs page on kubewarden.io, one may need to manually delete the expired certificate if you happen to hit this certificate for PolicyServer that it's already expired after 1 year, and just trigger a controller reconciliation. You can do that by deleting the specific secret for that specific PolicyServer. So for example, for the PolicyServer default, it will be the PolicyServer default secret, and just triggering a controller reconciliation of the deployment, which you can do just by adjusting the number of replicas of that deployment of the PolicyServer. This is, of course, on the blog post, release notes, and on the docs. I think it was too fast there. Maybe I've forgotten something, but it should be more or less the gist of it. And then also,
Victor,
yes?
if I'm not mistaken, you should not need to do that if you regularly roll out changes to the PolicyServer. This is something you have to do only if you don't touch the PolicyServer configuration since a long time.
Correct. Yes, good point there. I mean, this is fixed with 1.14. If you don't touch the PolicyServer regularly, then you may need to do that. But if you normally have rollouts of the PolicyServer, this is fixed for you.
Yeah, thanks.
And then another fix or change is the domain qualified finalizers. So maybe, Jose, would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, some time ago we noticed that we was not following best practice using domain qualified finalizers. So we fixed that and it's released. So it's out there. Just keep in mind, if you for some reason downgrade for 1.14 for an older release, which is, by the way, is not supported, but for some reason you need to do that, please, if it's an issue, please let us know. Otherwise, keep in mind that we need to release the new finalizer manually because the old controller is not aware of that. So we need to fix that by ourselves. So that's it.
Okay. And now that we have you, Jose, I wonder if you can also expand on the new host capability that we have.
Yeah, Kubewarden SDKs are now able to allow policies to get the container image manifest, which has information about the configuration used by the runtime to run the container image, which allow us to change some policies to check. For instance, one of the policies that I would talk about is the one for checking users. So with this new capability, our policies now can check the user defined inside the container image manifest. So it's not only the pod spec configuration only. So that's a new capability that allow us to do that. And by the way, cel-policy is already has this capability enabled as well. Not only our user group policy. I almost forget that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. So yeah, this new capability, as you have said, is part now of the container, resources policy, and also has been added to cel. So cel is, I suppose. Well, cel, we treat cel as a first-class citizen there, so you can expect cel to have all the host capabilities and so on.
Yeah, we have the compromise, the goal to always add new capabilities to the cel-policy, so it's already there as well.
Okay. More things about 1.14, talking about cel policies and so on. So cel, that brings the topic of cel in Kubernetes, which if you are aware, that means that, Kubernetes has validating admission policies now as stable in coming with Kubernetes. So we added a way to have kwctl scaffold Kubewarden policies from validating admission policies. I think it was Flavio the one that implemented that topic. So Flavio, if you would like to talk about it.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. So as Victor said, with Kubernetes, starting from 125, I think it was, or 126, it was like an experimental feature. But now with the latest version of Kubernetes, which is 130 at the time of speaking, starting from 130, now this is fully mature, fully graduated, so there is no feature gate around. And so you can, write your own custom cell policies inside of Kubernetes and then have Kubernetes enforce them. We have this cell policy for Kubewarden that allows you to just copy and paste the policies of Kubernetes and run them on top of Kubewarden, which means that if you are still using a version of Kubernetes that does not have the cell feature available, you can use Kubewarden to do that. Or another reason why you might want to be doing that, if you run the same policies written in cel with Kubewarden, then you can, tap into the whole Kubewarden ecosystem, meaning you have metrics, you have traces, you have the audit scanner that is going to look after these cel policies because they look and behave like any other kind of Kubewarden policy. So this is something pretty powerful compared to what Kubernetes offers out of the box, which, it's already great, but you can tap into more. And one of the things that you can do by writing cell code with our policy is to be able to do things like querying for other Kubernetes resources. So for example, you could write a policy that looks into all the other, that validates ingress objects, and make sure that there are no other ingresses already inside of the cluster that conflict with the one that is being evaluated. So a bunch of powerful features. What was missing, however, we realized was an easy way for you to just, move these Kubernetes policies into Kubewarden, because it was quite some manual work. So we decided to automate that. Let me share my screen. I can show you quickly how this looks like. This is all covered also inside of, can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yes.
This is all covered inside of our
Oh, I don't know if we lost Flavio there. It may be. Meanwhile, just in case, I'm gonna share my screen because coincidentally, I do have that page of the docs open. So Flavio was talking about, can you hear me? Yes, no?
Yes.
Perfect. Here we have the page that Flavio was talking about. He was talking about how to use kwctl, no? If you remember, with kwctl, you can use the command scaffold to scaffold cluster admission policies or admission policies. And in this case, here we have a validating admission policy from Kubernetes, normal validating admission policy. This one is looking for liveness probes and just not rejecting if you don't have any liveness probes around. Of course, validating admission policies need a binding, so they apply to something. In this case, it would be this kind of binding. For example, it's using a match label, and it's looking for if there's a specific label set on the pods, and then on the pods, on the deployments, and then it would apply to it. So how do we create a Kubewarden policy from this validating admission policy? With kwctl, we can just call kwctl scaffold BAP for validating admission policy, pass the BAP and the binding, and that's it. The output is going to be, as you can see here, a normal cluster admission policy. It's going to use the cel-policy, and you can see here that kwctl is using latest, and you can see here the warning saying maybe latest is not a great idea. Maybe you should use a tag. This is also noted here, so you can use a tag that corresponds with the features that you would like from cel-policy. Just have a look at it on the releases of cel-policy, and then the usual. This is basically a copy paste because cel-policy just uses the same cell Go interpreter, so you have the same variables and expressions and validations. We do create the rules and mutating and so on that match the cluster admission policy from Kubewarden, and then we are also taking care of the BAP binding with the match labels. So that would be it. I think it's quite nice. I think it's a nice feature, no? It's nice to have the cel-policy, and it's nice to be able to reuse all the policies that are there already for Kubernetes on BAP. And as Flavio was saying, it's even a superset. Our cel-policy is a superset of the cell Go interpreter because we do have the host capabilities and so on that are available.
And also metrics and tracing from
Also.
Kubewarden. So a user would want to maybe use the same, start with VIP, and then when it needs more advanced stuff that Kubewarden offers, switch to Kubewarden, and it should be easy. So that's why the scaffolding was made easy by using the kwctl tool. So
yeah, and well, and also one can test the policy outside of the cluster without a cluster and so on. Hence, having the kwctl tool, you could just write end-to-end tests with kwctl or iterate on the policy outside of the cluster, which is also nice.
Yeah, one improvement we were looking for, it was just to take the full resource as an input, because right now you just get the module and the settings as a JSON, and it would be a nice idea to have the full policy. So if you want to test VIP policy, you could even convert those to admission policies and then run it in Kubewarden.
Yeah, good point. Okay, am I as usual? Yeah, this is in docs. Thanks to the docs team, we have here on how to on how to do this BAP migration, and then we have the tutorials about cell and a bit of intro and reusing the BAPs and what comes where and so on, and examples. Flavio was talking about an ingress policy and a host. One with host capabilities, with context-aware capabilities, and you can see here an example to get an idea and so on. I think that's it, no, for the cel-policy and so on. Let me think about next topics. Yeah.
I'm back, sorry. Zoom keeps crashing anytime I screen share, and I realize that when it's too late. Basically, when I finish.
No problem. We went through all the
Linux
things.
on desktop.
You can review it on asynchronous on the recording, I suppose.
Yeah. Thanks.
What else? I think with that, maybe we have finished with the 1.14 release topic. Of course, the release was not only containing these things, there were also bug fixes, and we paid some tech debt on some refactors and so on, as we usually do. And if you are more curious, have a look at the releases, have a look at the blog post, which normally has more topics there. And part of the release, or like part of the release, so to speak, is the changes to the policies that we had. And from that, we can talk about the user group policy, which had the change about the container image, checking for the container image config, and then looking at the user there. Jose, you have talked about it. I don't know if you would like to expand there.
No, it is exactly that. We basically talk about when I talk about the host capability. So yeah, the policy is doing that and is already released, so you can use it right now.
Perfect. As usual, it's released on Artifact Hub and so on. So feel free to grab it. And then we have also an update to the Env-var-policy.
Yeah, this is a quick fix reported by a user, which the policy should validate when the user do not define the value. The policy should validate the name only, but that was not working as expected. So we did a fix and release it. It's just to give a feedback from the community, because this bug was found by the community. So it's already released as well. So you can use it right now.
Sounds good. So that was what we achieved in these last weeks. Maybe we can have a quick chat on what's to come, super quick. So of course we're gonna have a 1.15 release, with the usual cadence. What do we have in the 1.15? I'm opening the milestones that we have on GitHub, which are public. I do see changes to the controller, which is nice. We had there a bump to KubeBuilder version 5, which is super nice, and it's almost complete. And also we changed the patterns that we are using for the reconciler, using sub-reconcilers. We do have changes and fixes to the Helm charts for specific OpenTelemetry things and so on. We also have an update, a feature update for the Helm chart about taints and tolerations and so on. And that includes, I think that was done by Jose also. Yeah. That includes examples, So could you expand on what does it entail?
Yeah, this is from community request, which was asking for a global way to define tolerations and affinity configuration for the whole Kubewarden stack. So that required two changes. One is in the CRDs, adding a missing field for tolerations. And another one is the Helm chart values, which allows you to define in a single place, and that will be applied for everything, like audit scanner, controller, and the PolicyServer deployments. So that should be released in the next 1.15 version.
Sounds good. We also have the progress on the policy groups. We have talked about them in the past in this meeting. We want now to be able to define a policy that is defined by policies itself inside. Flavio, you were working on it. As I understand, it's going through stages now, so we can slowly work through it and release it with good confidence. So if you'd like to expand.
Yeah, sure. So this is quite a big feature. So we want to allow users to take existing Kubewarden policies and mix and match them together to create a bigger policy. And how do they tie together? They are tied together by writing a Boolean expression. For example, something like the up-armor policy should be happy, and at the same time, another policy that maybe looks into the user who created the request, the object, the user should be this one. And then you take these two different policies, the one about up-armor and the other one that is looking into the user who created the request and is happy or not happy, accepts or rejects based on a configuration of usernames. You take these two policies together and you put an end condition, and then by doing that you create a bigger policy. You can also, we have some examples inside of the RFC which are mixing, for example, verification of policies with SIG-store and the origin of the image, doing things that are pretty interesting and would otherwise require you to take a policy and grow its code base to also cover for other features. So this allows you to create complex policies by doing composition between different policies instead of writing a lot of code. And so this requires some changes, of course, inside of, let's say, the backend where the policies are enforced, which is the policy server. And this is what we are focused on during this 1.15 release. The changes are basically almost done, and these will allow the 1.15 policy server to also understand this concept of policy groups. However, we need to do some changes into let's say the front end to make this feature available to the users, which requires us to introduce new custom resource definition. So work that has to be done inside of the controller, definition of new custom resources, reconciliation of these new custom resources, some extra validation over there when you define these CRDs. And this is not part of 1.15. So this is something that we will do as part of 1.16. And so this is then there is going to be the need to write a documentation covering all of that. So it's a really big feature, and we didn't feel confident to doing everything at once. Also, as Victor said, we have been going through a refactoring of the controller, and we wanted to write these new CRDs and reconciliation loops inside of a new controller, new meaning with all the technical depth rest. So yeah, but this is coming along pretty nicely. And if you are someone who is running PolicyServer standalone outside of Kubernetes, because this is a feature that we have, you can write Kubewarden policies to validate any kind of JSON data. You could actually start using this feature immediately, because after all, in this scenario, you're not using our CRDs, you're writing your own configuration for the PolicyServer. So that's something we should mention inside of a blog post of 1.15.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's super nice. I mean, it's a modular approach, the architecture that we have, and we have everything separated, which is nice, because it allows us to work on this separated with its own tests and with higher confidence.
And if we go back to the cel-policy that we were talking before, it's even super powerful, because you can take an existing Kubewarden policy and then enrich that by writing just a small cell expression, and this is it. So you take a cell expression, you mix it with a Kubewarden policy, which is doing pretty powerful thing, and you are up with a new policy. So
yep, good point. Okay, I suppose that's gonna be it for today. I cannot think of any other topics. As usual, you can see the topics on the docs, and you can come out to us. Feel free to reach us on the Kubewarden Slack channels. And folks, do you think we have forgotten anything?
There are many other small but
of course
things about 1.15, but let's talk about them when the release comes.
Yeah, fair enough. So with that said, many thanks for joining today. Many thanks for listening to us if you are listening to this recorded. And till next time. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.